Hi everyone, I'm Anna Smith with scrappingstampingandstuff.com, and I'm here today to teach you how to do heat embossing. Had somebody ask me this the other day and I've been meaning to make a video, so here we are making a video so that hopefully if you have never tried this, this will give you the information and the courage to do it. Heat embossing is, I think, one of the most dramatic things you can do on a card for as simple as it is. And it's not much different from stamping. You just need a couple of extra supplies and an extra minute or two, and you can add a lot of drama to your cards. So this is what I'm talking about. It is, in this case, I did the gold embossing. I stamped it. You add some powder, and then you heat up the powder until it melts, and it has a raised texture, and depending on what color you're using, a lot of times it will be shiny. Well, it will be shiny or even metallic in color, and it's just really gorgeous. So let's get to it, and I'll show you how to do it. Now, the stamp set I'm using today is called Flurry of Wishes, and it has these wonderful snowflakes in it. And I am going to stamp this big one and emboss it with silver embossing powder. Now, the reason I actually chose to use silver specifically for this, because I think the silver and gold powders are easier to see them melt and change than with some of the other ones. For example, I think it's hard to tell when the white one melts. Now, I've done it a lot of times, and it's not a problem for me to tell anymore, but for a beginner, I think it's easier to start with maybe the silver and gold ones. So here's my stamp. I have my Versamark ink pad. You will want to use Versamark ink and ink up your stamp. Please excuse my sorry looking band-aid. Good thing I didn't cut my finger off, because I would have been upset if I couldn't stamp. Okay, so go ahead and stamp this. Now, here is my silver embossing powder. This, you have to sprinkle your embossing powder on while this is still wet, but you do not have to rush. I actually let one of these cards sit for an entire day once, came back, and thought that I could re-stamp it in a different place and that yesterday's ink would be dry. It wasn't dry. It stuck to yesterday's ink and that day's ink, which I thought was kind of crazy. But my point is, you do not have to rush with getting the powder onto this, because it will not dry terribly quickly. You can use a container like this to catch your extra powder, or you can just use a scrap sheet of paper. Either one. I'm a fan of not having extra stuff in my craft room that I don't need, so scrap sheets of paper are always on hand, and they work just fine. Okay, so this is all covered in powder. Now, I just remembered something I forgot, of course. I like to use my embossing buddy. It's a little pillow looking thing that will remove static electricity from your paper if you just kind of run it over before you stamp your image, and it removes the extra static electricity that does what is happening right here. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's actually a little bit of extra powder stuck to my paper right here. And the second thing I forgot, of course, is a paintbrush. A paintbrush is a perfect tool. If you get powder stuck to places you don't want it, don't worry, it's not permanent until you heat it up. So you can knock it off with your finger, which is what I'm going to do right now. Or my preferred tool of choice is a paintbrush. Especially one with a pointy tip can get into places, you know, you don't want to knock off the powder that you want to be there, but you may want to get into some cracks and crevices in between, and a paintbrush is perfect for that. So this looks good. I am going to heat this up with my heat tool. Stampin' Up! Heat tool is awesome. I hear stories from people of burning paper, and I said, oh my gosh, like, well, I've heard this from a lot of people. I've never had that problem. And somebody said to me, it's the Stampin' Up! Heat tool. Apparently other heat tools out there have, maybe the heat isn't controlled as well. But I've never had that problem with ours, and I've done this a million times. Ours actually has 2 heat settings. You can use it to dry ink, do the heat embossing, do all sorts of other things as well. So I'm going to turn this on. Once I turn it on, I will stop talking. But I'm hoping I can zoom into where you can see what you're looking for. And what you're looking for is, all of a sudden, this will go from a dull, powdery look to a shiny, glossy look. And I'm going to want to make sure the whole thing is melted and heat set before I stop. So, like I said, I'm hoping I can zoom in and that you will be able to see what's happening here. Oh, I better plug in my heat tool. Hang on. All right, now we're in business. All right, and there you can see it is starting to melt from the center outwards. Right, isn't that gorgeous? Watching the powder melt is like one of my favorite things about stamping, as silly as that is. I feel like it's like if you could watch frost form on a window. I feel like it's kind of the same idea. But anyway, 2 things I should mention. I try to hold the tip of the heat tool about 1 inch or 2 from the paper. You don't want to be too close. If you're too far, it's going to take a lot longer to heat it up enough for it to melt. So that's the one thing. And the second thing, hang on, it will come to me. Oh, second thing is, if you have a small piece of paper that you're embossing on, I just like to hold it down with some scissors or my piercing tool or something, because if you try and hold that down with your finger on a small piece, you are going to burn your finger and it doesn't feel good. So just kind of hold it down with something like scissors or a piercing tool. Okay, so that is it. There are all kinds of variations and techniques you can do with heat embossing, but that is just a basic overview. Now, I use heat embossing all the time, and I just thought it would be fun to show you some of my cards that I've done. This one, I stamped all the balloons, and then I stamped the greetings and embossed them with white embossing powder over the top. This one, we actually have an embossing powder called Iridescent Ice, which just looks like glitter. So after I stamped the purple trees, then I stamped that whole tree with the Versamark ink pad, just the ink pad right on top of the tree, and used that Iridescent Ice embossing powder and got the beautiful glimmery look. This leaf I embossed with white embossing powder, and then I just took sponges with different colors and sponged over it. This is called Emboss Resist, where that embossed area resists the color of the ink, but the areas in between the embossing will take that ink. This one I stamped the greeting and the stars in the background so that it shows up on that black. I actually have a video on this card if you would like to check it out. Here, I've been working on lots of Christmas cards, you may be able to tell. I embossed the joyful greeting with gold. This one I love. I embossed the greeting, and then I also embossed just a few of the leaves with the gold. And I thought that was really cool. And one last one just for fun. Here I embossed the stars with white embossing powder and the glow from the star with gold. So there are some samples. Check my blog. I use embossing all the time. It is scrappingstampingandstuff.com, and check out my other YouTube videos. If there's something you would like to learn, let me know. I'll make a video on it. That's why I'm making this one today, because somebody asked me a question about embossing. So yeah, take care. Check out my blog, like I said, and I would love for you to do your shopping in my online store. Thanks, everyone.